Hi there folks, welcome back to my channel, and for this video I'm going to be doing another little book review, and I do seem to be on something of a roll this year with books that I'm actually finishing, because I know this time last year it was a bit of a struggle for me to actually finish a book and not just DNF it because I was just getting bored with it, but I have actually managed to get onto a bit of a roll. Before I got into the actual review, if you're enjoying my videos, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please click on that subscribe button, please click on that notification bell, leave some likes, leave some comments. I do love hearing from you all, and if you have any suggestions of what you're wanting me to talk about in any of my videos, please leave a wee comment in the comment section below. And to get on to the main topic of this video, this is actually a book that I came across at the end of last year when I'd kind of paid a wee visit to Waterstones. And again, I was just kind of looking through to see if there was any books that I liked the look of, if they were kind of seemed kind of interesting to me. Yeah, I do kind of sometimes just kind of go and just have a wander. And I came across this book, and I really do hope that I'm going to pronounce this guy's name right. No, my luck, I probably won't. But it's a book that's called We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I'm like, yeah, it is a Russian name. He was from Russia, and he actually lived through both the end of the Tsar, the reign of the last Tsar, and the start of the Soviet era. And this book itself was actually a dystopian, which was actually which actually went on to influence 1984 by George Orwell and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. So if you're interested in reading kind of 20th century dystopian novels, We is probably one to add to your list, because I was actually talking to the guy at the till and just talk because I before I'd actually went into Waterstones that day, I had never heard of this book. I had never heard anybody talking about it. I had never seen anything online about it. Again, you always hear about 1984, you always hear about Brave New World and about how there are these amazing novels which are kind of dystopians, and yeah, and people always make kind of cultural references to both those books, but I'd never heard anyone talking about this book, and I just randomly came across it, and when I'd read the blurb and seen that it was an influence for both those two books, which I have read and I have loved and I would recommend to anyone, again just for the kind of cultural significance, but also just the fact that they are really good books. So I had to buy this book and I had to read it. So I went up to the till with this book and a few others that I'd decided to pick up that day, and just got talking to the guy behind the till and just said to him again, yeah, this is what this book is, like this is the influence it's had. And I was just looking at his face of, he just kind of looked at me and went, okay, that's what I'm buying when I finish up work. This book actually went on to his list of what he was going to buy next, just because it has been such a major influence on 1984 and Brave New World. So the actual book itself, it's the whole premise is that there's been this kind of catastrophic war which the characters keep referring to. It's called the 200-Year War, and it essentially is kind of meant to have decimated parts of the world, and that humanity's the characters that you're dealing with directly in this book are kept within this kind of bubble, almost this kind of world where everything's controlled by the one state, and the one state's controlled by this figure called a benefactor. And yeah, it is very much kind of, you can see the kind of influences of 1984 here. And so everyone's kind of cold, sterile, everyone's living their lives by a timetable. That every day you get up at the same time, you go and have your breakfast at the same time, brush your teeth at the same time, go to work, like do your work, go home. You know, it's all regulated exercise, and it's very much this kind of just a safe, sterile, kind of almost inhuman kind of way of living. And it's even with the way that the buildings are set up and their homes are set up, that it's almost like everyone's living in kind of in glass boxes. That if you have an apartment or a flat, you can see directly into your neighbour's flat. And so it's almost like kind of it's set up that no one has any privacy, so no one can get up to any mischief. And you're constantly under surveillance, so therefore you're constantly under surveillance, you're constantly being watched, and there's always the possibility that what this group called the Guardians can always kind of appear, and if you're doing something, they will catch you. So it's just that very kind of inhumane way of living. And it's a kind of the idea of not having freedom, of not having the kind of choice to do what you want to do, is seen as being beautiful. It's seen as being how you're supposed to live your life. That individuality is seen as being kind of barbaric. That's what they kind of look back on the individuality and the freedoms that people have now, have had in the past, as being barbaric and kind of backward. And this essentially can be seen as being very much a comment on Soviet Russia and the focus very much on the state rather than the individual. That essentially no one was an individual, they were all just part of this greater state, this greater being, and everything had to be done for the betterment of the state, for the glory of the state, and what people wanted to do on an individual level, that just wasn't to be kind of taken into account. And it's always kind of laughed at, it's in the book itself, it's because everyone's kind of living in these kind of see-through boxes, even sex has become regulated, and the characters are not even allowed to have children when they want. It's like if someone got pregnant and wanted to have a baby and it wasn't a state sanctioned pregnancy, it was illegal. And it almost gives us this kind of impression that within the story itself, it's no one kind of questions the influence that the one state has on everyone's life. It's almost like it's this kind of one state. It's almost like kind of quite, not really kind of one state, but the one state is like a kind of hive mind almost. It's almost kind of like the Borg from Star Trek, where everyone just thinks the same thing, everyone does the same thing, everyone knows their place, no one questions, and it's, yeah. And it's almost that kind of way that they've all been conditioned that to accept that they can't have freedom, that they've got to live their lives this way. And everyone, and I think kind of like the whole inhumanity of the system that's set up is kind of summed up by the fact that people don't have names. In the story, no one has a name. They're not referred to as people either. They're just referred to as numbers. Collectively, as everyone just together is just referred to as numbers, and the names have been replaced with numbers, or kind of letters and numbers. And the way that you can tell if somebody's a male or a female is that males start, if you're referring to a guy, it starts with a constant, and with women it starts with a vowel. So one of the female characters in it is called O90, and the other female character in it is like, is it I133 or something, and so it's kind of that idea. And so it's a kind of, it's very kind of impersonal, it's very cold, it's kind of, it's almost like it's stripping people of their identity, their individuality, that you're just kind of part of a machine. It's very kind of mathematical and very cold. And it's, as I say, is that everything kind of boils down to a timetable as well. And there was one bit in the book, like towards the start, where the main character refers to a holy book, but the holy book was just essentially a train timetable. Yeah, it's like that to them in the story, that was the idea of perfection. It was this train timetable, and that essentially became the basis for the idea of everyone living their lives in a segmented, timetabled fashion. And as I was saying before, there are a lot of parallels with the story 1984. And there will be parallels with kind of A Brave New World as well. So with 1984, the parallels are, there's this forbidden romance that the main character sort of kind of fights against at the start, but which end up seeing his demise. And the main character is this kind of formerly loyal drone who becomes unloyal. And I did see that the whole kind of thing with the benefactor kind of does very much kind of mirror the idea of Big Brother. And with Brave New World, from what I can remember from the story itself, again the parallels are just this: everything's very sterile, everything's very controlled, even sex is controlled, the kind of pregnancies are kind of manufactured and it's very much under state control. So you can very much kind of see the influence that this book, that this novel We has had on 20th century dystopian fiction. And the whole kind of reason why, in novel We, the whole reason why the main character ends up becoming disloyal is because of his connection to his new lover. I've just remembered, because I've just checked my notes, the lover of the main character is usually just referred to as D. His lover is I330. Because that's one thing that I did sort of kind of struggle with this book. I can never remember what each of the characters were called. It kind of, because it was very much this kind of letter number thing. And again, it does kind of make it very alien and kind of weird. Well, anyway, so back to what I was actually talking about just there. It is the main character's new lover, I330. It is her that kind of starts to kind of force his former loyalty to break down. That she kind of introduces him to certain things, certain ideas that are kind of frowned upon and are illegal within the society. And this sort of kind of gets him kind of coming more around to kind of what she's trying to achieve. She's part of this kind of rebellious group that's trying to kind of destabilise the one state. And he does kind of struggle at first. And this kind of struggle does continue on with throughout the rest of the book. and it's almost like kind of he's struggling to reconcile the fact that he is actually becoming more aware of his humanity, that he's developing what they keep referring to as the soul. So it's essentially it's the kind of the essential aspect of what it is to be a person, of what it is to be an individual. And for him it's kind of painful because it's that kind of tug of war between the safety of everything being regulated and controlled, and actually everything being free and you being able to do what you want and just kind of being able to live your own life. So it's that kind of struggle between those two poles, and it's just him never really being able to kind of find a kind of happy medium between the two. And it does kind of highlight the fact that change, especially major change even on a personal level, is painful. It can be destructive. It can affect you emotionally, psychologically, physically. It can make you ill. So kind of all this is kind of discussed within the actual story itself, and it also does kind of deal with the whole aspect of how much are people actually willing to pay for this, for on one hand, the safety of everything being controlled and everything being dictated to you, and what you actually pay if you're actually wanting to have freedom. So it's kind of like, it's trying to kind of get that kind of balance between the two. So I would suggest, again, as I said before, if you are interested in dystopian fiction, if you're interested in kind of the influences on novels like 1984, Brave New Worlds, and just kind of general 20th century fiction in general, definitely get yourself a copy of We. It's not, I wouldn't say it's particularly easy to read because it is described as being a poem in prose form. Okay, it's not the thickest of books, but it is kind of one of those good books that you do have to kind of sit and read and focus on and concentrate on, and not just being kind of sitting and reading kind of frivolously. But it's kind of one of those kind of books that does make you read, and make you sit and think. So definitely recommend that, and I'm kind of definitely glad that I kind of just randomly picked it up at the bookshop when I was in. So I hope you all enjoyed that video. I hope you all enjoyed my little review, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.